Hello and welcome to A Cat in the Garden. I can't believe I'm saying this, but winter is coming, and it is coming for us hard. And it's crazy because today it is currently 70 degrees out. I'm here in a t-shirt, but next week it is going to be a much different story. There is a massive cold front hitting basically the entire United States, and it is coming for us right here in Central Texas. We're having a crazy chill coming up. We're gonna have temperatures in the teens. I am so not happy about it. So we've got a lot of prep to do. While the weather is nice, I figured I would start doing this prep before I have to go ahead and cover everything. So I'm going to be ripping things out of the ground, harvesting things, preparing the beds if I can, and just assessing the situation. I've got to trim things back so I can fit covers over them, and I figured that I would just take you all along for the ride. I'm probably gonna start by just harvesting my peppers that are in the bed next to me. You can't really see it right now, and then I'm just gonna rip them all out of the ground because there is no way that peppers are going to survive a hard freeze like that. So they're just gonna go preemptively, not even gonna bother trying to cover them. They're gonna be dead. So we're gonna start there and see everything that we can get done today. I'm loving the beautiful weather. I'm going to cherish it while we have it and have Nutmeg join us for a little bit of help. So let's get to it. First things first, I've got Nutmeg over here as well as my basket, and we're just going to be harvesting as many peppers off of this plant as I can possibly get. Not all of them look healthy enough. There is quite a bit of cold damage on some of these peppers, so I'm just gonna harvest whatever looks good and hope that Nutmeg doesn't sit in the basket on the peppers again. There are also a lot of peppers on the ground, so I'll probably, whatever I don't want to save, I'll just round up and compost them because I really don't want a bunch of the exact same pepper plant popping up in my garden. As much as I love this pepper, this is the lemon drop, I was really going to try to overwinter this plant, but unfortunately the weather had other ideas, and that's fine. That's just how things go. You know, I don't live in South Florida or Southern California, so just gotta kind of roll with the punches with this. And I did go over in my last garden chore video the difference sort of between a pepper that I want to save versus one that I don't. So if you guys saw that, you would kind of know why I'm not picking every single pepper off of this. But I'm also just going to go ahead and unfortunately trim this plant down to the ground, kind of compost whatever I can. A few peppers that are firm fell off the plant off to the side there, and we'll just go ahead, do what we can. I mean, I think I can honestly start getting these branches off. Might be able to mulch them actually. I feel like that might be a better solution because my compost bin is very full right now, and it's just not worth the energy sometimes to try and compost this many branches. But oh, this is honestly heartbreaking for me. This is pretty sad. I loved this plant this year. It did very well. So this is a big section of it. Just go ahead and check. This one's pretty firm. And everything that's not firm, I'm just gonna leave. This is so sad. Oh my gosh, but this is honestly better than last year when I thought I could save all of the pepper plants and they just died on me during the first freeze that we got, because I did not do a good job of covering them. Like, it wasn't even a deep freeze. I just didn't have the frost blanket ability at the time. Since then, my husband and I have upgraded the arsenal, I guess you could say. Oh, that's a bit too thick. Can't cut that one. So this plant is just coming apart pretty quickly. This is very unfortunate. I am gonna leave the stump in the ground like I always do. I kind of showed that in a recent video as well, where I just leave the stump to decompose. There's a lot of organisms in the ground that are going to benefit from having something for food during the winter months where there's not as much available. So I'll just leave that decomposing in the ground, and by spring, whatever's left, I should be able to just pull up really easily because basically all of the roots should be taken care of by the underground organisms, and it'll just come up and I'll be able to compost that pretty easily. but I'm honestly not too worried about it right now. I'm not planting much in this bed except for onions and leeks right now, and I have some leeks in the ground over here just out of frame. Yes, hi, I see you. I also have the onions that I'm going to plant. I was going to plant them this week, but given the freeze that's coming, I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till next week. I'm gonna wait till it's over. I'm honestly only gonna be getting them in the ground like a week or so late, so I don't think it's going to affect their production much at all, really. That's too thick. This is still the only garden tool I have, so I have to kind of take that for what it is. I'm going to get more, guys. I'm going to. It's just when I get more is the question, really. So almost completely decimated this plant at this point. Just a couple more branches here. Just a quick inspection. This one's a bit firm, so we'll keep that. Some of these have some brown spots and some damage, but really not too big of a problem. I'm just lucky to get anything at all this time of year. Like, it's January and I'm still harvesting some peppers. So I just feel grateful. I feel really lucky that I live in a climate that's pretty warm overall. And we just have a stump of a plant left. I'm gonna go ahead, there's a pepper plant next to it over here. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that and sort of compost all of the branches next to Astra here, and I'll check in with you guys after. All right, so that's what I was able to salvage and harvest that I think will at least last in the fridge for a few days, and I wanted to show you all what sort of was left behind here. This giant pepper plant has been reduced to a stump. Gonna go ahead and take the tag, which it's completely worn away due to the sun. This is the other one. It's a bit thicker, so I wasn't able to completely take it down to a stump. But I think I'm also going to rip up those chives because they look to be about done. Usually they're about biennial plants. I might rip up a few branches from this, but I also think I want to see what the freeze is going to do with this salvia. It usually dies back and then comes up again, so we'll just kind of just see what's going on with that. But other than that, over here I've got a few leeks that are popping up. I've got a leek over there I need to harvest, and then a couple of branches from my pine tree I'm going to use as mulch somewhere else in the garden. But wow, we've completely leveled out this pepper bed, and it's time to move on to the next task. All right, we are doing a little bit more of the same over here. We are going to strip these pepper plants, get them out of the ground. There's a bunch of dead marigolds here as well. And these milkweeds are not completely dead yet, but I had a lot of volunteer milkweed pop up this year, and it was all the same color. So to limit that for next year, I'm gonna go ahead and sort of break these plants down as well. Maybe leave a stump in the ground just in case it wants to come back. These aren't in the worst areas in my garden if they do come back. So I'll just go ahead and start with the milkweed here. I am typically pretty careful not to get the sap on my hands. On some milkweed varieties, it can be toxic, not all. I think this one is fine, but I like to sort of be safe if I can. The one that I have to worry about the most is the pretty rare blue milkweed. It's available over at Baker Creek Seeds, but the sap is toxic. This one, unfortunately, is making a bit of a comeback after a few freezes. But I just don't think it's gonna survive the super deep freeze. I mean, getting down into the teens is a bit of an ask. I know sometimes they do come back. Mine didn't come back after last year. It died off, so I ended up pulling it, but I had a lot of volunteers. So either way, I think it'll be fine. I have saved a lot of seeds from last year's plant. This year, I tried to avoid it going to seed like late, just because I really don't need more seeds. It's called a weed for a reason. So it's kind of up to you if you have milkweed plants, what you want to do with them. I am more of the just cut them back type of person. They are easy enough to start from seeds. They self-seed super easily, and they're a weed. They just grow like a total weed. So I'm totally okay with removing it from the garden. I slowly removed all the ones from my pepper bed throughout the fall, and now it's just sort of time for my last ones. I do have one yellow one in one of my herb beds. beds, and I do want to save the seeds from that one just because I didn't have any yellow milkweed seeds. It was a new plant that I bought this year, and I would really love the color variety if I can save some seeds. I think I saw it had some semi-mature seed pods on it before we started getting some freezes, so hopefully they're still intact. If not, I'm sure I can always find another plant to buy next year, but it is what it is. This plant was absolutely massive, so it's gonna look really different. I've noticed lately, you know, with all the plants that I've been putting in and all the plants I've been taking out, the whole look of the garden has really changed over the past couple of months, and that's a nice thing in some ways, though I do miss a lush, full, green summer garden. We're very fortunate here in Texas to have a nice fall, winter garden as well, so it's all part of the circle of life, if you will. This is the last branch I'm going to remove. So I've got a pile of branches over there. This is pretty much taken care of. Everything that I left is pretty green growth, so we'll see if it survives. Probably won't, but it's all okay. Before I get rid of these pepper plants, I do need to get rid of the stakes that are sort of holding them up. I have some twist ties around them. I have some string around others. I do like these sturdier stakes that my husband made for me. They have worked a lot better when the peppers get more mature. These smaller stakes are fine. They just don't do the job quite as well. So go ahead and put them off to the side. The twist ties in there so I don't lose them. Let's see, here's one too. I like to reuse them even though they are super cheap. I just don't like to waste, you know. I think it's fine to reuse some things like this. I've been using those bamboo stakes ever since we lived in Maryland, so several years ago now, and it's all worked out fairly well. So these stakes I'll probably be using for a long time. It was fairly cheap to make them. My husband just bought like a 2x4 at Lowe's or Home Depot, cut it up into these stakes, put an angle in them to put them in the ground, and they have been really nice. I've mostly used them for peppers. I think they'd be nice for like a determinate tomato as well. Anything really that gets pretty tall but isn't exactly a climbing plant. I think these would work really well for that. All right, so all of the stakes are out of the ground here. I'm gonna go ahead and strip off these peppers. I'll do that off camera because you already saw me do it with the lemon drop peppers, and we'll sort of check in once we're done and this bed is cleared. That didn't take too long, but I'm back. Nutmeg was a pretty good help out here. I basically chopped and dropped all of the marigolds and put them in the ground or on the ground here just because it'll add a little bit of extra mulch. Even if I don't have anything planted in here, I really don't want the ground to freeze too much, just so that once it's over, I can get some onions planted in here. I don't know what he's doing, but he is struggling to climb over here, but that's fine. So that is all just sort of chopped and dropped there. I wasn't able to get it all super fine just because some of these branches are still alive, but as time goes on, that'll be a nice mulch cover. Plus, I dropped a lot of marigold seeds in here. I'm going to probably move some of them to other garden beds, but marigolds are a wonderful companion plant for your garden. So instead of having to buy them next year, I'm hoping that I just get free ones that pop up. So that's what's going on over there. This is what we're gonna move to the compost pile. So we've got a bunch of peppers, we've got the milkweed that we chopped up, maybe some remnants of the marigolds as well. This is what I was left with for the peppers. You can see as I was chopping up the marigold plants, some debris got in here, but we got a few handfuls, so I'm not going to be super mad about that. These will be some nice additions to our meals to have fresh homegrown peppers in the dead of winter, so that's nice. Also, I've got a bunch of tags here and a bunch of the twist ties. So we're gonna go ahead and move these all back over to where I keep them on my porch. So we'll go ahead and remove these first. I'll probably sort them out later just because I have a lot of sorting to do. But I've got everything here, and then I have this cute little organizer. So these are all ones that I haven't used yet, but I'm probably gonna get this sorted out during the winter. Next, we're gonna go ahead and move some of these stakes back. Since I've got you guys in one hand, might have to do a few trips. But we got some stakes. I did take off the string as well. I think the string might be compostable, but I'm just gonna go ahead and throw it out. You guys haven't seen this yet, but I did move the sealing table back here just to solve the issues with Nutmeg being naughty. So go ahead, put those there, and I will take care of the string later. I'll put it there so that it reminds me. Sealing table is doing really well. These are all going to go inside before the freeze, but because the weather is so nice today, I brought everything back out just to create more work for myself, but it's fine. So I'll go ahead, get the rest of these back in there, get those ready in the compost pile, and we'll go on to the next task. The next thing I have to address is this big, beautiful force of a crop next to me, and that's going to be artichokes. Right here, just at the edge of the frame, I have a frost cloth that's gonna go over these hoops. And while this is a perennial, and I have other herb perennials in here, I really wanna protect these plants from the incoming frost, just because it can damage the leaves and set back these plants. So while they are very cold hardy, I'm just gonna go ahead and trim this up so that we can go ahead and get this frost cloth over. It does pain me to do this a little bit just because these plants are so pretty, but you know, it has to happen at some point. Just gotta get them ready to go. They will come back with a vengeance. One of the ways that you actually grow artichokes is you chop them back at the end of their producing season. So they are used to getting chopped back all the time. So I'm not gonna feel too bad. It is gonna look maybe a little bit ugly for a while, but I think it'll be okay. Like I said, they'll recover in time. I do have some fennel in here as well. I don't know if you can see it because it's kind of thin and spindly. Just gonna go ahead and get that out of the way as well. And then in the back of this bed, I actually do have my yellow milkweed. So I'm gonna go ahead and not chop it down just because it is small enough that I can protect it, thank goodness. But I am gonna go ahead and perhaps harvest the seed pods on it here, though they look a bit damaged by the cold. We'll have to see what we can do about that, see if whether or not I can harvest anything. I feel like the cold shouldn't affect the seeds too much, but we'll just have to see basically. I do have a lot in the back here. I'm just gonna pile up all of these leaves. Anything that's sticking out over this bed is going to get chopped up, kind of going scorched earth on this a little bit. Not sure how happy these guys will be with me in the near future, but I think they'll recover because honestly my dog breaks them all the time. Probably see her running around in the background at some point in this video, but I think they'll be okay. These are much bigger than I would have expected them to be for it being the winter. Normally that's kind of like when they're beginning to start their comeback, to go ahead and grow in the spring and give us those little flower heads, which is what we actually end up eating. So I'll go ahead and compost all of these leaves. My husband is going to be really happy about this because he'll actually be able to walk back here now. It has been very difficult. Oh, hi Astra, you need to get Cassie here, girly. She is resting in the shade. And Nutmeg, of course, has come over to help. He's inspecting everything that I have chopped up so far, which is totally fine. But yeah, we basically couldn't walk back here for the past year because these plants have grown so big, but he will be very happy with me. Oh, I just hit Nutmeg, I'm sorry, bud. He'll be very happy now that we can walk here again. I'm not sure Astra will be too happy because this has been one of her favorite spots to get some shade in the yard, but I think these plants will grow back quickly. I think they'll grow back with a vengeance because every time I cut them, they just grow bigger. They just grow bigger and bigger every time. And I feel like I was tempting fate by planting them so close together, and I might have lost because you can't really see anything underneath these plants anymore. And that's okay. It looks really lush, it looks really full, but it is going to be crazy once it comes time to actually harvest something from in here. I will say one note of caution with these plants, they are extremely prickly. So I did get a little scratch on my finger, nothing too bad. Sometimes they kind of go in your skin and you gotta get it out with tweezers or whatever. But just one word of caution, they are super prickly plants. They don't seem to bother the cat or the dog too much just because they have fur for protection, but for people like you and me, you know, we don't have fur for protection. So just one word of caution there. I think we're just about done. There's like a little bit of some overhang with a couple leaves, but I feel like we'll be able to get this sort of enclosed. It still looks super full, which is nice. I was really worried that it would look kind of barren. Go ahead, put that down, and we will try to get this over a little bit. I might have to go get some more of these because that's kind of how I clamp it down, but we will go ahead and get this going. At this point, I'm basically just unrolling this and getting it over. Luckily, my husband and I had pretty well set it up before, so I don't think it's going to take too much effort to get this over here. And we sort of made it so that these PVC pipes can move with the wind, but they won't break, they won't snap. They are about 2 feet down into each raised bed. And all I have to do at this point is clamp it to each side. And I am gonna leave one side open, probably the front over there by you guys. So we'll just go ahead and leave that open. Probably start by clamping down the sides here because they are blowing quite a bit with the wind. All I do is use these office clips. They are the perfect size for my raised beds. I have to go ahead with a little bit of plants creeping over. So just to be mindful of that, you want to make sure that there's absolutely no air getting into these things when you do have a freeze. And I don't really care if it takes a lot of clips to get this done. The most important thing is that it's done right. So I'm just gonna go ahead, get them all clamped up, and then we'll go ahead, open up the side, and we'll check back in. Lastly, I'm gonna go ahead and roll this up over the top right here. I'm just going to keep this side open for a few days until we're actually going to be concerned about the weather. So just like I did with the other hoop covers, I'm gonna go ahead and roll this back a bit. It's gonna move with the wind, like I said. It's not gonna look perfectly straight or anything like that, but this will just give it some good airflow until we actually get the concerning temperatures with the freeze. But this is pretty much it. I did use it with the other two next to it for a couple of freezes so far this winter, and it worked really well. I had a couple of frost sensitive plants in that one over there, and they are completely fine due to the protective covering. So this has been working really well so far. I have a couple of beds behind it where I bought some new frost cloth, but I'm not able to get that cut and on here by myself given that it is 25 feet long. So I'm gonna have to wait for my husband for that one. But until then, I wanted to show you how I get this done, just in case you were looking to do something like this with your garden. It's a nice kind of hybrid between a row cover and a covering for a raised bed, since these are smaller than your typical 10 to 50 foot rows in larger gardens. Finally, what I can do is make a mental checklist of what needs to be done before the freeze happens. I have a lot of produce that is ready, like these French breakfast radishes, that I would love to just eat and not have to worry about losing during a freeze. I also have things that I can sort of make a checklist for, like, do I have enough frost blankets? Do I have enough of the office clips to clamp them down? Do I have enough mulch? I have an entire Christmas tree. These leaves were kind of blowing around in the wind, but I'm using that Christmas tree as sort of an extra layer of protection. I'm also using incandescent Christmas lights, some cardboard boxes to cover individual plants. I also have plants like the garlic that I'm not going to cover at all because they need the chill hours. But sort of making that mental checklist, making sure that anything that I can harvest, I do. Carrots and bok choy that are ready are great things to sort of consider. And then what do I need to do to get things ready to cover? Maybe take these off, because how am I going to cover these cabbages if this is sort of in the way of any sort of frost blanket? Or is there something that I can do to take these off? This bed here, I'm planning on eating all of these leeks, and that way I won't have to cover this bed at all. That is a very cold hardy perennial in yarrow, so it's not really going to need to be covered. If it dies back, it'll come back again in the spring. So that's sort of the mental checklist that I'm going to be thinking of in the next coming days. Like I mentioned earlier, I did order an extra 25-foot frost cloth that I can cut up and use for the various beds. But if you are going to be getting this heavy freeze that's coming, I would consider doing the same, ordering the last few things that you need to protect your plants and sort of using up what you can in the garden so you won't have to worry about it. So that is it for our garden chores leading up to this crazy freeze that is going to be hitting the country. I hope you enjoyed following us along today, and maybe you learned a little bit of something about how to prep for a freeze in your own garden. If you have things in pots, bring them inside, bring them into a garage, bring them in your house, whatever you can do. If it doesn't have to be out in the cold, don't let it be out here in the cold, because this is going to get very crazy next week. Just pray for us that these plants survive. I'm going to be doing the most out here. There's still a lot more work to do, as I just told you guys, over the next few days. So we are going to be very busy out here, but I'm glad that we could get some of these chores done while the weather was really nice and warm. I actually feel like I'm kind of sweating out here right now, which is crazy. It is over 70 degrees now and I'm sweating, even though we're gonna get hit hard. We are, I just know it. It's gonna be awful, but we'll get through it because spring is right around the corner. If you like this video, make sure to give Nutmeg and I a thumbs up down below and subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here on the channel. Thanks again for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.